When I was in middle school, look, I grew up in a family that has been forever impacted by gun violence. As early as I can remember, my father telling me about losing two of his closest friends in life when he was 25 years old. When I was in middle school, I had the experience of waking up to a bullet lodged in the wall above my bed. Unfortunately, over the last couple of months, too many of our St. Paul families have come face to face with gun violence in a way that is unacceptable. When I get a chance to spend time with families and neighbors who have had their lives, their neighborhood, their block, their children's lives directly impacted by gun violence, what I hear from every single one of them is, we need a new approach. They say, we got to do something different. We have to try something different. What they know and what I've learned is that gun violence in our community is a complex problem. And a complex problem cannot be addressed with a one-dimensional solution. That's why our administration, that's why even as a candidate, my focus has always been on how do we build complex, comprehensive solutions to the public safety challenges that we face. When I talk to officers, when I talk to neighbors, when I talk to business residents, business leaders in our community, I constantly hear the same thing. Their concerns around public safety center around the levels of homelessness that we've seen in our city. They center around young people who are disengaged, who nobody's engaging well, who have nothing to do in the summertime or after school. And they center around the impacts of chemical and mental health in our community. So as we look for a comprehensive set of solutions, those are the types of things that we need to be thinking about addressing. I said last night that this is a comprehensive problem. It requires comprehensive solutions, that our police officers do incredible work for us every day, but our police officers cannot do it all by themselves. I am bringing together, we're scheduling now a cabinet meeting to bring together our entire administration to have a conversation about the role we all can play in keeping our communities safe. In the coming months, in the coming weeks, we will be engaging community members. We have a focus on public engagement, and so we will be announcing shortly a series of public engagement events to ask community members to come with us and talk to us about those things and how we build the types of solutions that are necessary. And I am envisioning the possibility. Obviously, we have a referendum coming up next month that's going to impact our budget situation in St. Paul, but I am actually envisioning as well a possibility of bringing to the City Council a supplemental budget proposal that would focus on public safety from a comprehensive level, as like I just described. Happy to take any questions.
When you hear the feedback, like you did maybe last night when I shared some of your press conference on social media, some of the feedback can be so negative and focus on the fact that right now there is no clear plan. What's your response to that?
There is a clear plan here in St. Paul. It starts with adding police officers with my budget proposal that will bring the St. Paul Police Department to its largest size in our city's history. And as I mentioned those things, homelessness, unengaged young people, mental and chemical health, we have a number of things that we've put into that space, from social workers in our public libraries to our Familiar Faces pilot, which would engage homeless people and people who have kind of encountered our police and our paramedics over and over and over again. We have a number of initiatives that exist in that space to Project Ethos, which would divert low-level, first-time nonviolent offenders to community restorative justice programs instead of prosecution. We have a number of things in that space, and we have a significant plan. One of the things that I would share with those people is a level of dissatisfaction and a level of impatience and a clear sense that we can and must do more. There are people who think that right now St. Paul's on pace to a record year. We're not. Back then when I was in junior high, that was a record. Those were our record years in those early 90s. Preventing our city from getting back to that place is going to require the type of comprehensive plan that we're in the process of building right now.
Can you talk about your budget?
Sorry.
talked about bringing a supplemental budget to the council. Give us a little look as to what you mean. Is that for officers? Where will the money go?
Again, to me, what I hear from our residents, what I hear from business leaders, what I hear from even our officers in our community is that homelessness, unengaged young people, and mental and chemical health issues have a profound impact on public safety in our community. Every single initiative, any single approach or proposal that would address those things should be on the table for consideration, and I'm open to anything that can address those things.
So does that mean possibly adding more officers?
I'm open to anything that will directly address those things. I've never been against adding more officers. I'm against pretending that there's a one-dimensional solution to the complex challenge of public safety.
What's the price tag on this? Do you have any idea what supplemental budget number that could be?
We don't yet. This is something that has been in consideration and something, frankly, that I've been considering to be building for next year's budget process. Right now, we have seen a state of challenge over this last month or so that has brought the urgency right to our front door, which is why I want to have this conversation right now with our public and also with our city council. Obviously, the referendum that we have scheduled for next month will have a large impact on the budget situation in St. Paul, so I don't have exact costs in mind yet.
Any thought about how receptive the city council will be to this?
I would imagine the city council and I will be kind of in agreement on all of the things that I just said, that we need to continue to increase our, look, St. Paul is a relatively safe city. You compare St. Paul with our comparable cities around the country, and we are a safe city, but we'll never be safe enough. One shot fired is too many. One life lost in St. Paul is too many. And I know that our city council agrees with that, and I would expect them to meet this with the level of urgency that the challenge demands.
Mayor, you said we're not in a record year, but how does this year compare to maybe the last 5, 10 years?
That's an important question, and that's something we can share with you the exact data where that's concerned. What we see in our communities, I mentioned cycles of violence in our communities, and what we've seen in our communities and in our country is exactly that, repetitive cycles. And so our question can't just be, how do we meet this moment right now? Just focusing on this moment in a way that ignores the 30-year cycles of violence that we've seen, the generational cycles of violence that we see continue to play out over and over and over again in our country and right here in our city would be like putting a Band-Aid on cancer.
Mayor, are there any short-term solutions, though, because it is the highest homicide rate in at least a decade? Is there anything happening in the short term to provide some relief to people that are feeling this right now?
There are plenty of things happening in the short term, as the chief and I announced last month, from the investigative task force to increase patrol, to partnerships with our law enforcement kind of partners. There are plenty of things that are happening in the immediate sense. One of the things that has to happen in the immediate sense is standing up and resourcing those other types of comprehensive things. We are focusing on policing. Our St. Paul Police Department does a great job, but again, our police department cannot do everything all by themselves. Our police department cannot prevent these crimes from happening by themselves. That's what requires a community, all-in type of approach that's going to require every single city department, and it's going to require our neighborhood nonprofits, businesses, and neighbors all working together.
Mayor, do you feel anything's changed this year that has added to this increased amount of gun violence? Any of these factors that you talked about, is it any particular ingredients to this that you see?
One of the things that research has shown, that our experience nationwide and certainly our experience right here in St. Paul shows, is what we've talked about, is that that violence can be a public health epidemic, that gun violence bears all of the markings of a public health epidemic, that just as the biggest indicator, the biggest predictor of flu is if you've been around someone with the flu, the biggest indicator of violence, the biggest predictor of violence is a previous incident of violence. And so what we're seeing is that cycle repeat itself. And that's what we need to be focused on, not just how do we get out of this moment, but how do we get out of this cycle. That's exactly why we're focused in the way that we are.
Mayor Carter, obviously people getting hurt is more of a priority than appearances. However, I know last night, there were fans streaming out of Allianz Field nearby where you were holding your press conference. The headlines say, shots fired near Allianz Field. It was the first playoff game. What do you say to people who don't travel maybe to St. Paul or to the Twin Cities who are across the state about coming to the community? I mean, how can you tell them something to make them feel like they're going to be safe when they come to these major events?
We had 20,000 people enjoy a soccer game yesterday, had a great time. Unfortunately, our team lost, but had a great time and did it safely. They've done it over and over and over again. I think people understand that our city isn't defined by these kind of events that we've had. Our city is certainly not defined by last month, the events of last month. Like I said, we're a community that, relatively speaking, in comparison to any city, comparably sized city in the country, is an incredibly safe city to live, work, play, enjoy a game. And we're also a city that will never accept good as good enough. We're a city in which one shot fired is too many, one life lost is too many, and we can all know that we're a community that will never accept shots fired. We're a community that will never accept violence as the status quo or as the norm. We will always continue to push forward and say we can continue to be a safer city.
Mayor, about the budget, so are you saying that we won't have answers until the referendum next month?
What I'm saying is I'm going to start now. We're going to build the conversations within our administration are starting right now. We are going to be having conversations. I need to engage our city council in this conversation over the next couple of weeks. And I also, we will be launching and announcing as soon as we can stand them up a set of community engagement events to engage members of our public in the conversation about what those solutions can and should be. Those are the things that are going to happen upstream of us determining what exactly those asks are and what exactly the amounts are that are tied to them. One of the variables there certainly is the outcome of the referendum next month, and that'll be a part of what goes into the process of the consideration.
And do you expect they'll be able to include that in the budget that they pass in December then, the city council?
Yes.
Can you just clarify, Mayor, at this point, what your proposal is for the 2020 budget as it relates to the St. Paul Police budget, and then what else you may be considering?
Our proposed authorized SOAR and strength for the St. Paul Police budget is 630 officers. The police chief has confirmed that once we hire to that level, that will be the highest number of officers our St. Paul Police Department has ever employed. It includes a number of things beyond that, though, as well. It includes a Familiar Faces initiative that partners with our police department, Metro Transit Police, our paramedics, and other agencies to identify a small set of about 36 individuals who collectively accounted for over 1,000 contacts with law enforcement and paramedics in the last year, to say how do we work more proactively with them to not just help kind of move them out of crisis over and over and over again, but to help move them to stability. It includes social workers in our public libraries, and it also includes a number of initiatives like that to say between our mental health co-responders to help officers be able to connect people to the community-based, culturally responsive kind of resources that will help them to connect to stability, and a number of initiatives like that. We can get you the full kind of proposal if you need it. But it includes a number of proposals that are in line with our community first perspective, that public safety is the responsibility of all of us and not just our police department.
But nothing off the top of your head else that you would want to propose in addition to what's already been proposed?
Again, I don't want to presuppose the process. I certainly have a number of things in mind that I want to test with community members, and we'll certainly invite all of you to be a part of that process with us as we do that. But one of the important aspects, I think, of our commitment to deep and meaningful public engagement is not shortcutting that by saying we already have the solution before we bring people together to engage it. That process has started. As I know many of you know, my State of Our City address earlier this year focused on public safety, and we had a series of conversations leading up to that about what and how we desire to build community here in St. Paul. Through our budget process, we had a large conversation about public safety that informed the budget proposal that I brought forward, and we'll continue that through this set of community engagement events that we'll be announcing shortly.
Do you advocate for anything being done at the state level? Is in the legislature taking some action on gun violence? Is there anything that you would support or advocate or lobby for?
Without a doubt, I'm well on the record with regard to with regard to gun legislation at the state level. We've been at the Capitol for the past couple of years having the conversations around background checks. We've been there having the conversations around red flag laws, around probation reform, and a number of things like that that would help make our state safer. We'll continue to do that, and as we advocate for change and legislation at the state level, we will take local action as well.
Any update on the condition of the males that were involved in last night's shooting?
I don't have an update. Thank you very much for your time.